The June 5th, 2025 Rider Experience and Operations Committee meeting is called to order. I am Christina Walker. I'm the Rider Experience and Operations Committee Chair. Welcome to everyone attending the meeting, both in person and via Zoom. For board members joining via Zoom, please turn on your camera and state your name prior to making any comments or asking any questions so that the public and your fellow committee members know who is speaking. Hunter, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Angela Burney. Christine Frizzell. I do see that board member Frizzell is present, though we appear to have some mic issues. Hunter George.
Here.
Board member George is present. Ed Prince.
Here.
Vice Chair Prince is present. Deshaun Quinn. Here. Board member Quinn is present. Pete von Reichbauer. Jeremiah Zachlai.
Present.
Board member Zachlai is present. And Christine Walker.
Here.
Madam Chair, a quorum is present at this time.
Great, thank you. Some quick notes for my report today. We have initial ridership statistics from the recently opened Downtown Redmond Link extension. Staff will be coming back to the committee in the coming months with additional information. On Saturday, May 10th, the Marymoor Village and Downtown Redmond stations on the 2 line opened. As we all know, to considerable fanfare and a great deal of activity. Initial ridership statistics show that the opening weekend saw almost 30,000 boardings along the 2 line, with the first full Monday through Sunday week of operation achieving about 47,000 boardings. For comparison, a typical full week on the 2 line for the year prior averaged approximately 22,400 boardings a week. So congratulations to staff and riders for making this a huge success. Very exciting. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our CEO, Dow Constantine, for his report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Number of items. First, on Wednesday, the 21st, the East Link Extension Project team completed a critical milestone, towing the first light rail vehicle across the I-90 floating bridge from South Bellevue Station to Judkins Park and back. A truck towed the light rail vehicle, checking for things like vehicle clearance, and track alignment. And I'm pleased to report the tests went very well. Of course, the psychological boost was immense after many years of work, and everyone was excited to see a train on the bridge for the first time. Following the test, we will continue to inspect and adjust the track and test supporting electrical systems. There are several remaining project risks that must be carefully monitored before we proceed with further systems integration testing on the floating bridge. We remain focused on opening the I-90 segment of Eastlink as soon as possible. And our top priority is to make sure all new service is delivered safe, high quality, and reliable. One of the next steps will be the closure of the planned closure of downtown tunnel stations. That's this coming weekend, June 7th and 8th, with buses shuttling folks from Capitol Hill to SoDo for more 2-line integration testing. And that leads to my the next part of my report, which is about another exciting testing opportunity coming up on Friday, June 13th. As many of you know, when the 2-line is fully in service from Redmond to Linwood, we'll add a significant amount of service between the International District Chinatown Station and the Linwood Station, as both the 1-line and the 2-line will serve those 14 stations. So on May 13th, during the morning peak hours, June 13th, during the morning peak hours of 5 to 9 a.m., we will be testing 4-minute headways on our line for the first time. In addition to our regular 8-minute peak service, passenger service, we will be running out-of-service trains in between each in-service train. These will be single-car trains. They will stop at each station. They'll dwell for 20 seconds. They won't open the doors. But we will be able to use this opportunity to practice the work of interlining trains from the 2 lines and raising our frequency to 4 minutes. Should be an exciting opportunity for us to test out the system. The extra trains will run only between Linwood and Stadium stations on Friday. We'll do another version of this test in August, but that time it will be with passengers aboard. So it's going to be another exciting day as we move step by step toward the opening of the 2 line and the achievement of 4-minute service from the International District to Linwood. I want to provide the Rider Experience and Operations Committee an update on the Regional Fair Forum. You might recall that in my prior role as county executive and chair of the Sound Transit Board, I convened a regional fair forum for the purpose of setting a vision for the next decade of regional fairs, establishing priorities for the next phase of ORCA implementation, and considering recommendations and policy changes to support things like fare capping, reduced fare program simplification, and other improvements. I want to specifically thank King County Executive Shannon Braddock for stepping into the role that I occupied as the Sound Transit Board representative to the Regional Fair Forum. I also want to express my gratitude to board members Walker, Frizzell, and Quinn for participating as representatives of Pierce Transit, Community Transit, and King County Metro Transit, respectively, while no doubt at least keeping their Sound Transit hats at the ready. The Regional Fair Forum kicked off in late February. They had their most recent meeting just last week. It focused on options to improve fare simplification, and the next meeting is going to focus on access to reduced fare programs. While there's still more work to do for the Regional Fair Forum, I will keep this committee and the full board apprised of progress as that group develops recommendations and a plan for how those recommendations might lead us to more unity among the transit agencies and simplification for our passengers. Finally, in the interest of time, the REO metrics presentation is printed in your packets. As always, if you have questions about the metrics information, please let us know. And Madam Chair, that is my report.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have questions for our CEO? Great, well, thank you for that, and thank you for the report on the Regional Fair Forum. Our REO committee is well represented there, or the Fair Forum is well represented here.
Yes.
I don't know which it is. Okay, on to public comment. The Rider Experience and Operations Committee welcomes public comment as an important part of the public process. Comments are received and considered by the committee in its deliberations. Hunter, what types of comments have we received today?
Madam Chair, we do not have any written or in-person comments in the Ruth Fisher boardroom. However, we do have 2 people signed up on Zoom today.
Great. Well, I will just quickly go through the ground rules for our verbal public comment before we call on those folks. Each commenter has 2 minutes. Speakers should comment on the action they identified on the sign-up sheet and stay within the allotted time. All comments must be germane to the agenda items or items within the committee's purview. Speakers should not make introductory statements, derogatory remarks, profanity, or personal attacks not germane to an agenda item, statements related to a political campaign, or statements for or against a political candidate or ballot measure. Speakers should also not engage in conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting, including conduct that is not germane to the committee's work or agenda. This is the only warning speakers will receive. If these rules are not followed, I will ask for the microphone to be turned off. So starting directly with virtual public comment, I'll just kick it over to you, Hunter, to manage the names online.
Of course. Our first person signed up to comment via Zoom is Zachariah Osman. Please raise your hand in Zoom so we can identify you. Again, calling for Zachariah Osman. Okay, we're not seeing that person in the audience, so we'll move on to our second commenter, who is Joe Kunstler. Please accept the notice to unmute your microphone and go ahead.
Thank you, Hunter. Joe Kunstler here. My comments today are mostly about resolution R 2025-11 about the at-grade crossings program. Yeah, someone who is looking forward to Seafair and using some of the Rainier Valley stations to connect to the Seafair Air Show. And as someone who cares about racial justice and someone who let me be very careful because you cannot endorse or disendorse candidates from the microphone. Has conflicted feelings about the King County executive race because I admire both the candidates, especially. I really think we need to have a commitment to racial justice here, and we need to address the Rainier Valley as a moral crisis. We would not, I'm grateful that South Transit has gone to grade separation after that initial phase. So I would really hope we could just, have at least some protection for the public and some increased reliability, because that Port of Link connects very well with Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, and it's important that that connection be highly reliable for riders to continue to use it and customers to convert potential customers into customers by having a reliable transit connection to major hubs like the SeaTac Airport, downtown Seattle, Linwood, and hopefully soon the greatest city in the Sound Transit pod, Redmond, with its awesome president, Vanessa Kurtzer. Go Redmond. And I love Linwood too. And I love Seattle too. And I love the rest of, for different reasons. But moving along, I really am excited for Eastlink. I hope that this agency takes pride in this case of being late and getting it right. Because we need to deliver a quality, safe product here. I have to be a dummy test pilot for you guys to get Eastlink done. Go Sound Transit. Thank you for all you do.
And Madam Chair, we will try one more time. Is there a Zachariah Osmond in the audience? Not seeing them, then it's all that we have for public comment, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Hunter. We'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to our business items. There are 6 business items on today's agenda, 1 for committee final action and 5 for recommendation to the board. We'll start with the minutes from the May 1st, 2025 Rio Committee, and I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Moving on to our items for recommendation to the board. We will start with resolution number R 2025-11. And we have Moises Gutierrez, our Deputy CEO for Agency Oversight, is going to provide information on the at-grade crossing program master plan. And he will also recognize additional staff coming up to the table.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Again, my name is Moises Gutierrez with Agency Oversight. As noted, we are pleased to bring you an action today focused on improving safety in the at-grade sections of our system. This work is directly responsive to Board Motion 2024-45, which passed last year. As a brief reminder, we brought a presentation on this very topic to the full board a couple of weeks ago. And as Victoria will describe in a few minutes, we have incorporated the board's and the community feedback from that meeting. Lastly, I do want to emphasize our commitment and attention to this program and the projects associated with the program, as they are fundamentally about improving safety, not just for our passengers and operators, but also the communities that we serve. And as noted during the board meeting, we cannot do this alone in a vacuum. We will move in earnest, but in close collaboration with the community, as well as the authorities having jurisdiction, most notably our colleagues at the Seattle Department of Transportation, or SDOT, whose partnership we value deeply. Victoria, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Walker and members of the committee. I'm Victoria Morris, and I am the Acting Project Director for the At-Grade Crossings Program. With me today is Andrea Trepidine, Sound Transit's Acting Chief Safety Officer, and Huey Newsom, Sound Transit's Chief Financial Officer. Next slide. We're here before you today seeking a due pass recommendation for the full board for Resolution 2025-11 to adopt the At-Grade Crossing Program Master Plan and approve a budget amendment for the At-Grade Crossing Program of $70.8 million. Next slide. Before we go any further on the presentation, I wanted to take a moment to highlight what we heard in the board meeting last month. These points were used to make final revisions to the master plan as well as updates to the presentation today. We evaluated the community input that we heard on the master plan as well as the presentation. We provided some updates to our maps, and we provided additional clarification for our project prioritization process, as well as more of a connection detail between the data and the projects that we're showing you today. Next slide. As a reminder, you've seen this before. We have 5 program priorities which have been developed to guide the focus and development of the program while ensuring the program remains adaptable to changing data trends. These priorities align with the agency's mission and values, aiming to enhance safety, reliability, and accessibility while fostering strong community relationships that build trust. The at-grade crossings program is focused on enhancing safety at designated at-grade crossings. The Rainier Valley is a priority as this area has had the highest concentration of at-grade incidents since link service began in 2009. Next slide. The at-grade crossing master plan establishes criteria and processes to identify, evaluate, and prioritize potential safety enhancements, supporting the continuous development and implementation of projects while providing transparency in the program's approach and project decisions. The plan focuses on identifying and implementing near and midterm safety enhancements that are currently in the program, while also highlighting engagement with the public and collaboration with our regional partners. Next slide. I recognize that this is a busy slide, so I will do my best to focus on the key points. This slide outlines the process that we use to identify, prioritize, and ultimately monitor our safety enhancements. Beginning with the enhancement identification, we gathered input from various sources, including industry best practices, peer agency research, community and partner agency feedback, and data analysis. As far as data analysis, I want to expand a little bit on that because I did hear some questions last time. So that includes things like our safety event reports, such as collisions, near misses, and violations, as well as traffic volumes and observations made during site visits, complemented by feedback from engineers, operations staff, and safety and other industry experts. Moving into the next stage, enhancements are then put into an assessment tool, which is a 3-step process, starting with an initial safety compliance review, followed by a high-level risk assessment and a final ranking process to prioritize enhancements using a criteria based on potential safety impact, feasibility, and alignment with program priorities. Under project development, enhancement options are then bundled for faster delivery while minimizing operational impacts and service disruptions. Once the safety enhancement projects are implemented, the agency's Enterprise Safety Division actively monitors safety data, conducts regular safety inspections, and tracks all safety-related incidents as part of the agency's hazard management program, allowing for assessment of mitigation effectiveness and continuous improvement in safety performance. The program has done additional data monitoring for the Rainier Valley corridor since it began implementing safety enhancements in 2021, and as needed to support data collection for pilot projects and studies evaluating potential enhancements. Next slide. On the previous slide, we noted community engagement, and this slide is a snapshot of our community engagement efforts, including the program's 3 focus areas: engagement on the master plan, outreach during project development and construction, and our ongoing safety, education, and awareness campaigns, communicating and engaging with the community about at-grade safety. All program engagement is committed to producing materials using plain language and an additional language our communities communicate in. The program will continue to prioritize engaging with the community, including in understanding the effectiveness of our enhancements. Next slide. This list of projects here are shown from the draft plan and now into the final. Were consolidated and optimized into a set of 10 total projects. The projected cost to implement this project list is $74.5 million. A risk-based cost assessment was conducted using initial project cost ranges to develop each project's final cost estimate and schedule. The program remaining uncommitted budget as of May 2025 is $3.7 million. The program is asking the board to approve a budget amendment to increase the program's authorized allocation by $70.8 million to provide funding to continue project work through implementation. As new projects are identified, Future budget requests beyond the $70.8 million will be submitted through the annual agency budget process. Please note the projects with schedule ranges represent earlier dates which are target accelerated completion dates, extending through a risk-based schedule date. The master plan focuses primarily on projects that we can control and the board can oversee, while acknowledging and highlighting the importance of our strong partnerships with regional agencies that oversee vehicular traffic flow, road safety, and physical infrastructure for vehicles and pedestrians. Almost all of the projects listed here will need third-party concurrence, and we are continuing to work with our partner agencies to do so. These projects need that timely concurrence to move forward and to meet our accelerated timelines. Next slide. One area the board asked us to better communicate is the connection between our projects and the data. The table shown here maps the program's enhancements to incident type. Excuse me. For example, the dynamic envelope pavement markings enhancement, which is the 7th project on the right-hand column, is designed to bring greater driver awareness of a safe clearance zone when a train is present. That helps address one type of data of rail-to-vehicle collisions, which is the 2nd category listed in the left-hand column. Our most recent Rainier Valley corridor analysis shows positive trends in incident reduction, and the agency will continue long-term monitoring to fully assess the effectiveness of the enhancements. Next slide. Again, I know we've mentioned this, but to advance our projects, we recognize we need close coordination and often concurrence from partner agencies who hold the primary authority over roadway and other vehicular and pedestrian infrastructure. As an example of this, between 2021 and June 2024, Sound Transit, in partnership with SDOT, completed 10 at-grade crossing enhancement projects in the Rainier Valley. The collaboration with SDOT was crucial, as some projects were under SDOT's jurisdiction while others were within Sound Transit's authority. The program continues to coordinate across other Sound Transit agency departments and projects to ensure alignment and consistency, identifying project efficiencies and streamlining processes, improving service delivery, and minimizing impacts to the public. Next slide. The agency is intending to close out 6 projects currently in the TIP and move the funding into one at-grade program to more effectively manage the work. The total increase over the existing 6 project budgets currently in the TIP amounts to $3.3 million in 2025 and $70.8 million through the entire TIP period. The agency has always fully funded state of good repair work along with critical system enhancements and does not reasonably believe this additional funding would materially impact the ability to deliver any other projects forecasted. Next slide. This table shows how the $3.3 million in 2025 and the $70.8 million through the entire TIP period is allocated out by specific phases to execute the work. Next slide. We are here today seeking a due pass recommendation for the full board for Resolution 2025-11 to adopt the at-grade crossings program master plan and approve a budget amendment for the at-grade program of $70.8 million, which will allow the at-grade crossing program to continue progressing current project work through implementation. Next slide. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Victoria and team, for the presentation. What questions do we have for staff before we move this forward? You want to start?
I do have a couple. Thank you. So one, thank you for your presentation and also following up on questions raised when we covered it last. The first question I had, because I remember the last time this item came up, there was references to the master plan. So this question is in that spirit. I'm just wondering if you can explain in detail the design and planning elements for the implementation of accessibility efforts for people living with disabilities. And the reason I ask, I read the master plan and there are several references. It just doesn't necessarily say the word, but I could tell that there were like scenario planning situations. And so I'm just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit more, because I thought they were significant and that they were called out in the master plan.
So I want to start by noting that the plan references specific disabilities such as wheelchair users and those who have physical impairments and those who are deafblind or visually impaired. Importantly, we are engaging with these communities in the design of current and future enhancements. We have done surveys as recently as 2022, we did an accessibility survey where we reached out to disability groups and professionals who work with people with disabilities to ask about their experience crossing tracks. This included both quantitative and qualitative data as we had set questions, and we also had open-ended requests to hear more about their personal experiences. Just in the last 3 to 5 weeks, we actually hosted a tour of crossing safety enhancements on the 2 line with a number of folks from a couple of disability groups as well. And we collected that input so we can then take that into the program. And kind of going back to that busy slide, we go back to our enhancement identification and we look through this input to identify enhancements and then start moving it through our assessment as we start to identify new projects for the program to continue to implement.
Thank you, Board Member Quinn. Are there other questions from the committee? I will throw one in there and then I'll kick it back over to you, Board Member Quinn. I was able to meet with staff just ahead of this meeting, and they provided me with the data that has the little bubbles that are bigger where the problems are, and that was really helpful to look at it on the map and see exactly what type of crash we were dealing with at each intersection. So for me, that really helped illustrate why we're headed the direction we're going. So thank you, first of all, and just for my board colleagues, if they want to take a look at that maybe that's helpful. On the current projects page, slide 8, under the safety focus area, when it has a pedestrian, is that because we're addressing a pedestrian is getting hit? And maybe that one's clear. So let's say maybe the car the problem or the victim that we're, or both? How do those, what do those little graphics mean in terms of safety focus?
The safety focus area is meant to convey the group that the enhancement will be providing benefits for.
Okay.
So visibility for pedestrians, for example, dynamic envelope pavement markings provides more awareness and disability both for the train operators as well as pedestrians around the intersection and most importantly, vehicles that are driving and interfacing with that intersection.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's helpful. And then it is really helpful to see that next slide, slide 9 on, why we're doing what we are doing. The pedestrian gates seem like maybe not easiest, but like pretty straightforward and like we could put those in pretty quickly. Why are those 2 projects at the bottom? Why does it take till 2028, 2029 to make those happen?
Sure. So, well, they do seem relatively straightforward. There is a lot of complications with the existing systems. So one of the reasons the Rainier Valley projects are marked, for example, as pilot is that we actually are developing new technology to ensure that our sound transit signals can work seamlessly with the SDOT traffic signal systems. And so there is a little bit of design and SME input that takes some time, really evaluating, developing a new system that we haven't actually used in other parts of our operating system currently. The other side of that is it does take some time to get through not only the final design through this, but getting into permitting and then ultimately out into construction while we're working with access around the trains. And so we're working internally with our teams to make sure that we can balance minimizing impacts to the public. So not doing a full shutdown, for example, but since we're working so closely with the tracks, we do have some time windows that extend that schedule a bit, but trying to find that spot where there is some impact to the public, but we're trying to minimize it, but also accelerate the schedule.
Okay, thank you. And I just know, when it comes to people's safety in and around our system, we can't move fast enough, but recognize that there's work that has to be done to get it right. So I appreciate some of those short-term things that are happening this year and next year, and appreciate staff's I know we really pushed from this committee to make this happen, and appreciate your meeting the mark, really. So thank you. Board Member Quinn, you had more questions.
Yeah, I actually wanted to kind of follow up on investments, and I didn't want to ask this question when it first came to the full committee, but I kind of feel like I have a responsibility as a board member. You touched on it in your presentation, but I'm kind of going to double down on it. So I know that we have a partnership with the City of Seattle and SDOT. Are we considering kind of innovative, streamlined approaches to making those investments, specifically as it relates to accelerating the safety components in the plan? I mean, I just feel like I have to say it because we all need it and it's important. So is there a process? Is there a work group? How are we doing in that?
Yeah, so we have regularly scheduled collaboration meetings with our SDOT partners for all of the projects outlined in the master plan, to include the gates. And actually, our automatic pedestrian gate projects have an additional meeting dedicated just to those. So we actually have 2 pretty regular meetings. During those meetings, we do discuss what the process would be and how we can find ways to streamline that when it comes to permitting, also getting concurrence between our 2 agencies, looking at long-term maintenance and operation and how that's going to set up, as well as just straight what we need to do between the 2 agencies to support implementation.
Great. Thank you, Board Member Quinn. Board Member George.
Thank you. And thank you for the great presentation. I just wanted to make sure that I understand the budget amendment aspect of this. And again, I don't have any concerns. I just want to make sure I understand it. And so I see how we're amending. I'm trying to find my document. The 25 spend and then your lifetime spend, I think, is, if I'm understanding this correctly. And is this funding we anticipated spending in before, and now we're moving it up to 2025? I'm trying to figure out, do we have to go find additional spending, or was this anticipated and we just have to amend the budget to account for it now? Or can you help me understand the timing and the budget amendment?
Huey Newsome, Chief Financial Officer. So, Board Member George, the way I would explain it is this. So we have a 2025 allocation for this project. We need to increase it by $3 million. And I think where you're going is, where's that $3 million coming from? And so we will not be dipping into contingency. It's a little early in the year for us to really be dipping into contingency. Right now, we're seeing kind of an underspend in the totality of our service delivery projects as a whole. So we feel comfortable that the 3.3 million is there for that. Same kind of pattern for the 70 for the full project allocation. So if you think about all the projects that we have and the assumption in the long range plan for spend in service delivery, enhancements plus state of good repair, if you will, we feel that we can find that over that time span without dipping into something else. So I'm hoping I'm answering your question.
Yes.
But it's not, it's particularly for 2025, we believe very strongly that we will not have to dip into a contingency to make this happen.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Board Member George. Any other questions for the team? All right, with that, Hunter, will you read the motion into the record?
Yes, resolution number R 2025-11 is a resolution of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority. 1, adopting the 2025 to 2029 at-grade crossings program master plan and emerging existing transit improvement plan projects to create one program, and 2, amending the adopted 2025 budget to allow the at-grade crossings program to continue progressing current project work through implementation by A, increasing the authorized program allocation by $70,800,000 from $18,379,900 to $89,179,900, and B, increasing the program's 2025 annual spend by $3,300,000 from $9,806,416 to $13,106,416.
Great, thank you, Hunter. That might be a record on numbers in a resolution. With that, I will take a motion to forward this action to the board with a due pass recommendation.
So moved.
Board Member George, second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other questions or discussion before we take the vote? All right, seeing no other questions, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you to the team. I know there's tons of work on this ahead of us, so I'm excited to get it going. Thank you. All right, moving on to resolution number R 2025-12. We have Emily Yasakochi, our acting system and service manager director, and Adrian Mija, our Title VI senior program manager, to provide a presentation on the two-line welcome. Just a couple notes. Earlier today, I presided over the public hearing on this amendment to the 2025 service plan. And during this hearing, we received 2 comments from members of the public. One suggesting a spring 2026 target date start to allow for adequate testing and verification of service performance. And the second one providing a list of ST Express service reductions and adjustments to accompany the two-line service changes. If other members of the public would like to provide comment on the amendment to the 2025 service plan, they can do so at the June Board of Directors meeting, which is scheduled for June 26th. And as always, information on how to provide comment at that meeting can be found on the Sound Transit website. With that, I will kick it over to you, Emily. Thank you again for the presentation, and we'll hear the presentation and then we'll read it into the record.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Emily Yasakochi, and with me is Adrian Mejia, Senior Program Manager for Title VI. Sorry, I didn't say my title. Acting Director of System and Service Planning. So next slide, please. So we are here today for 2 actions. The first would recommend board approval to amend the 2025 service plan to include the opening of the 2-line to Linwood City Center. And the second is an associated action to recommend board approval of the Eastlink service and fare equity analysis. Next slide, please. So as you probably know, major service changes must be approved by the board, and this is typically done through the annual service plan. The 2025 service plan, which was approved by the board last fall, included the 2-line extension to downtown Redmond, but not the Cross Lake connection and extension to Linwood. So this request is just an administrative action that would add the 2-line extension to Linwood into the 2025 service plan. Board action on major service changes allows us as staff to provide our operating partners with the instructions for what service to operate. Next slide, please. So you may be wondering about the timing of this. So this slide shows a timeline of our service implementation schedule for changes included in the 2025 service plan. So the top bar is showing the years 2024 through 26, and the bottom bars show the service periods, which you can see overlap with the calendar year. So the implementation period for the 2025 service plan basically covers the spring and fall service periods, which are bracketed in the diagram. So that is basically service from the end of March this year to the end of March of 2026. We provide service parameters to our operating partners for the spring service period right after the board approves the service plan in the fall. And then for fall service changes, we provide those parameters to our partners in the spring. So this action, again, will allow us to convey those service parameters to our operating partner, King County, and allow them to prepare for an implementation date within that fall service period. So in other words, between August 30th of this year and March 27th of next year. That was a lot. Pausing. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so onto the actual service plan. The Cross Lake connection will serve 2 new stations at Judkins Park and Mercer Island, and it will complete the 2-line between Redmond and Linwood. Service will operate every 8 minutes at peak and 10 to 15 minutes at other times. Combined headways, as the CEO mentioned before, will between International District, Chinatown Station, and Linwood City Center will be from 4 to 8 minutes, providing a really big increase in mobility in this corridor. The span of service on the 2 line will be from approximately 5 a.m. to midnight. And at this time, I will turn it over to Adrian to walk through the Title VI analysis on the next slide.
Good afternoon. My name is Adrian Mejia, and I am here to speak with you briefly about the service and fare equity analysis for the East Link extension. These analyses are a requirement and part of continuing obligations under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, FTA guidelines, and sound transit policy. They serve to identify whether proposed changes result in disparate impacts or disproportionate burdens to minority or low-income populations. If such findings are discovered from these comparative analyses, which compare existing service with service under proposed changes, Sound Transit is to take steps to minimize, mitigate, or avoid such effects. Results of these analyses are to be brought to the board for consideration prior to the commencement of service changes. The Cross Lake extension expands service for Link riders and does not contribute to any reduced or eliminated service. It also does not bring about or coincide with any changes to the fare structure. Given that fact, no fare analysis was required. Consistent with other extensions that only add service, no findings of disparate impact at the router system level were discovered, and therefore no mitigations are required. Having said that, I ask that this item be moved to the full board for approval and for its inclusion in the triennial Title VI program update. That is all. Back to you, Emily.
Thanks, Adrian. Next slide, please. So I'm sure you will all be surprised to hear, shocked even, that there is strong support for opening the 2-line Cross Lake connection. Engagement has spanned the many years of project development, design, and construction, and has included a variety of formats, translated into many languages, and there also included some creative engagement approaches during the COVID-19 pandemic. As Chair Walker described, there was a public hearing conducted at 9:30 this morning with 2 comments that have already been summarized. Next slide, please. So should these items move forward here and at the board meeting later this month, our next steps will be first to provide direction to King County on the service parameters for the 2-line so they can begin their preparations. And then staff will continue development of the 2026 service plan, which will include the 1-line extension to Federal Way, the opening of Pinehurst Station at 130th in North Seattle, and then potential changes to ST Express bus service related to the 1 and 2-line extensions opening, and also including board and community engagement this summer and fall. We'll return in October with some of the recommendations for the 2026 service plan for your consideration. Next slide, please. So in summary, we're requesting a recommendation of approval by the full board to amend the 2025 service plan to include the 2-line extension to Linwood City Center. And in a separate action, we're requesting the committee recommend approval by the full board of the East Link service and fare equity analysis. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you for the presentation. What questions do we have for staff? All right. I think we've covered it all. Hunter, would you please read the action into the record?
Resolution number R 2025-12 is a resolution of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority amending the 2025 service plan to include the major service change of extending the 2-line to Linwood City Center Station.
Great. And I will entertain a motion now to forward this action to the board with a due pass recommendation.
I would like to make that motion, Mayor Frizzell.
Board Member George, second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further questions or final discussion? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. And we have one more related motion. That is motion number M 2025-27. And information on this action was included on the presentation that we just got, so we can move straight to committee action. Hunter, will you please read the action into the record?
Motion number M 2025-27 is a motion of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority approving the East Link Extension Service and Fare Equity Report.
Great, thank you. I'll now entertain a motion to forward this action to the board with a due pass recommendation.
So moved.
Second, Mayor Frisell.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Great, thank you, team. Now we will move on to motion M 2025-28, and Huey Newsome, our Chief Financial Officer, will be back, and Ahmad Bilal, our Administrative Service Director, will be here to provide information on an amendment to the lease for the 705 Union Station building. Go ahead, whenever.
I'm new here, sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Ahmad Bilal, and I'm the Director of Workspace Solutions. Project Most changed the name of our division. Today, I'm here to talk about a request for approval for the CEO to authorize the lease of with the 705 Union Station LLC for the addition of space in the 705 building where we currently have administrative space. Next slide. Some of the details of the amendment, we would be adding about 20,942 square feet, which is the second floor of the 705 building. The purpose of the presentation today is to update the REO committee before seeking full board approval at a future board meeting. The focus of this presentation is to outline the business need, the space strategy, and the financial impact to ensure alignment ahead of that formal action. Next slide, please. Next slide. Earlier this year, we began reassessing our space needs as part of the agency's updated return to office plan. More employees would be returning to both Union Station and the 705 building, raising concerns about available workspaces. Our initial consideration was leasing up to 140,000 square feet in the 505 First Avenue building to support in-office staff and co-location. The drivers of that deal were low price per square foot, favorable terms, and an option to purchase. An analysis by our people and culture showed that fewer employees were going to return to office than originally expected. So even if in 2025, we filled all vacant roles and anticipated consultant headcount, the extra space at the 505 First Avenue building would not be needed. Our interim recommendation is instead leasing one additional floor in the 705 building. The benefits of that, it would allow us to enable co-location between our current two buildings. It fosters collaboration and addresses our immediate shortages, and it allows us to build a longer-term real estate strategy as we look for an administrative headquarters. Next slide, please. Okay. All right, so the 705 building, this is a floor plan of our existing footprint. And as you see, the second floor of a 705 is what we're talking about adding today specifically.
Yeah. Just one quick thing on this when it comes to, as Ahmad has said, Huey Newsome, Chief Financial Officer for Sound Transit. One thing I do wanted to add on the previous slide, if you can go back. One thing I wanted to add on the previous slide is that, in anticipation of a concern about the budget, I do want to make sure that, we have adequate budget in the 2025 budget right now. The dollars that Ahmad alluded to earlier, the $500,000 that you see on your screen, that would come out of our leases and SBITA line. And there is adequate money because of underspend and SBITA throughout the agency for us to fund this initiative in 2025. Thank you.
All right. And if this action was approved, we would begin with lease execution, tenant improvements, and a furniture install of the second floor. In August, we would move into the space. September through December of this year, we would start departmental co-locations. And in March of 2028, the lease would expire. And at that time, we would have determined our long-term space needs and ideally would move into another location or extend at the 705 building. Next slide, please. All right, so as mentioned before, if this item does get full board approval, we will move forward with executing the second floor lease. Begin workspace planning to support co-location. We've already started with the concept of neighborhoods and rolled those out to chief of staffs. And then we would continue developing our long-term strategy, which is going to begin with identifying options for a core campus headquarters, and then also looking at a plan for continuing activation of Union Station. That concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have questions for our presenters from the committee? All right, well, you covered it all and we're good to go. We need to read this into the record. Go ahead, Hunter.
Motion number M 2025-28 is a motion of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to execute a third amendment to the lease agreement with 705 Union Station LLC to lease the second floor, 20,942 square feet of the 705 Union Station building, beginning on July 1st, 2025, with a lease term ending on March 31st, 2028, to coincide with the term of the agency's existing lease of floors 1, 4, 5, and 6 for a new total of 196,685 rentable square feet of space in the 705 building in the amount of $2,700,000 for a new total authorized lease agreement amount not to exceed $66,249,313.
Great, thank you, Hunter. I will now ask for a motion to forward this action to the board with a due pass recommendation.
So moved.
Second, Prince.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any final questions or discussion on this item? I do want to just take a moment to thank staff. I know there was a ton of thought that went into this. It seems fairly straightforward now, but I know that a ton of research and work was done around this with a lot of people. So thank you for making sure our staff have good places to work. All right, seeing no other comments, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move on to resolution number R 2025-13, and I'd like to call on Brian DePlace, our acting passenger success deputy executive director, to provide information on an action to internalize Sound Transit Security Operations Center personnel. Take it away, Brian.
Great, thank you so much. Can you go to the next slide, please? So I'm Brian DePlace, and I oversee our security and fare engagement functions. And we're here today to talk about Sound Transit's Security Operations Center, which provides an essential safety and security function for our passengers and workers. I'll talk briefly about what the Security Operations Center, or SOC, does, some of the risks and challenges of our current staffing approach, which is through a contracting method. And then I'll talk about the benefits of bringing these functions in-house, wrapping up with a request for a recommendation for board approval to convert the SOC from contracted services to full-time Sound Transit staff. Go to the next slide, please. So the Security Operations Center, the SOC, provides 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week support for passenger and worker safety. There is an SOC in Tacoma at our Tacoma Link Operations and Maintenance Facility, and there's another SOC here at Union Station, operating on 2 different floors here. 7 Sound Transit superintendents or employees oversee about 34 contracted dispatcher staff. These dispatchers are the single point of contact for all agency security functions, managing and coordinating real-time incidents, responses, and handling inquiries related to security, including phone calls and the text function, which was recently implemented a couple years ago. You'll see that number up on the slide there. Next slide, please. Our contracted SOC dispatchers monitor thousands of cameras that are located throughout the system, as well as monitor radio communications and alarm notifications. When there are emergencies, they are the ones observing, reporting, and coordinating with law enforcement and other agency functions responsible for managing incidents. They also receive and identify maintenance and facilities issues that could pose a risk to the public and provide customer support functions such as our lost and found. Next slide, please. So here's a little history of the staffing of our SOC. So back in 2010, Sound Transit initiated a contract for both the SOC and all the security staff you'll see out on the system. It was, at the time, it was one contractor providing all of those services. Some board members may remember there were performance challenges with that contractor identified back in 2021. And then in response, instead of having one contractor that either thrived or failed, we appropriately spread the risk and created different contracts for different functions. And that started in 2022. At that time, we transitioned to one contract for the SOC and then another set of contracts for our security officers that you see in the field. Last year, due to ongoing staffing challenges, we then added another contractor to the SOC to hedge against single points of failure. And while all these efforts have kept the SOC operational and functioning, there are a number of challenges related to our current staffing model that I'll get into in the next slide, please. So this slide summarizes some of the risks of our current state. First, as I've mentioned, there are ongoing staffing challenges, and you can see on this slide our turnover rate, which can obviously have an impact on response times, continuity, and consistency. That turnover rate is abnormally high, especially when compared to industry standard. As a result, our supervisors or superintendents spend a significant amount of time in onboarding and training and re-onboarding and retraining, when ideally more of that time would be dedicated to responsiveness and building capacity internally at Sound Transit. Also, kind of inherent to that contracting model, Sound Transit must work through the on-site account manager if there are changes to protocols or if direction is needed, which is challenging when working through real issues real time. And while everyone is trying their best, there's clearly some inefficiency built in when it comes to managing real-time responses. So next slide, please. So this slide speaks to the benefits of bringing this function in-house. It increases the likelihood of a more stable, more responsive security operations center. Thereby, it provides better support for a safe and secure transit system. Specifically, by bringing the functions in-house, we increase the likelihood of workforce stability, which provides better retention for our employees, ongoing institutional knowledge, which translates into more consistency for our passengers. It then sets the table for more reliable coordination between multiple agencies and functions during incidents. Additionally, ongoing training and preparedness builds capacity of the team and enhances readiness for emerging threats, as well as boosts our preparation efforts for major events and surges in ridership, like during the World Cup. And finally, as mentioned on the slide, because the finance plan anticipated the funding of the SOC, there is no budgetary impact by bringing these functions in-house. So next slide, please. So the action we're recommending today is for board approval to transition the Security Operations Center from contracted services to full-time Sound Transit employees, which, as I mentioned, is within the existing budget. Next slide, please. So if approved, that would happen at the June board meeting, and then we would begin phasing in hiring and onboarding of these staff members to ensure stability and continuity of operations with the contractor. We would anticipate about half staff would be hired by the end of this year and at least 75% ready to go for World Cup operations. And then finally, as we continue to evaluate other security functions within the agency, we'll identify needed improvements and bring those forward to the board as necessary. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Do committee members have questions? Board Member George, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. Are you, I think all your mathing is sound. I'm curious about the transition. Will we overlap? Will we have the contracted personnel continuing to do this work for a while you're making all those hires? I mean, what does the transition look like?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And absolutely, our number one goal is continuity of operations. So we would be onboarding and hiring new staff while continuing to work with the existing contractor to make sure there is, what I would call like a positive redundancy as we're moving from one model to the other.
Okay. And there's the 7 supervisors and the 34, I can't remember what there's a bunch of staff and some
Correct.
supervisors.
Yes.
Are all of those contracted right now?
The 7 kind of supervisors, or what we would call superintendents, those are Sound Transit employees.
Those are
and they're
okay.
basically on site, working with the contracted manager, who is then directing the 30. It's kind of a complicated story to tell.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
They're
Yeah.
directing the dispatchers.
Okay.
So the dispatchers are all contracted. So the idea is to take the contracted functions, bring them in house, and then those superintendents or supervisors can actually supervise the work.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot more sense. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Board Member George. Any other questions? All right. Hunter, will you please read the action into the record?
Resolution number R 2025-13 is a resolution of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to increase Sound Transit staffing levels to transition the operations of the Sound Transit Security Operations Center from contracted staff to full-time employees within the existing budget approved by the board for contracting these services.
Great. Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to forward this action to the board with the due pass recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Any final questions or discussion? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thanks, Brian. And that concludes all of our votes for the evening or afternoon, sorry. But we do have a couple presentations. So we will start with on our reports to the committee on the Link Resiliency Quarterly Update. And we have Harry Demarest, our Asset Management Executive Director, and Shaw Linz, our Integrated Transit Systems and Strategic Asset Operations Director, to provide the report.
Apologies, I don't know. The update is Marie Olson, acting deputy
Wonderful.
CEO, will provide the update on the Resiliency Quarterly this
Great.
time. So it's coming straight from me. And it's a big report. I'll try to go at a fairly fast clip here. But I am here today to provide an update on the agency's response to the Operating Systems Resiliency Report. We're heading in the right direction and we have a long way to go. So this is our third presentation to the board on this topic. And just to give you a little history, in December 2024, we presented the need for the review of ST's operating system resilience. And then last March was the first quarterly where we presented the report findings and committed to providing the board quarterly updates. So today we'll present on how we're trending with unplanned disruptions, the work that's been completed since March to reduce unplanned disruptions, and how we plan to complete the remaining resiliency work. And no action is requested at this time. Next slide. Oh, I apologize. Let's go one more. There we go. So I'm going to walk you through the data that we're using to track unplanned disruptions. Next slide, please. Okay, first off, let me orient you to this slide. So this is an average per month. So all of last year, each month averaged out to 38 hours a month where essentially our system was down because of interruptions. Last quarter, the 3 months averaged 20 hours. And then we've only got data through April at this point, and we're down to 13 hours per month. And we usually run, so 20-hour days is about 600 hours a month. So I think what we're seeing here is that our maintenance and state of good repair work are paying off. Unplanned disruptions this quarter are approximately down a third of the 2024 average. We continue to see improved trends, and we're seeing normal operations now about 97% of the time versus 94% of the time last year. It's a great start, but we all know that 3% of the time down is still far too high a level for disruptions. Next slide, please. Now this graph you should be fairly familiar with because we did present it in December and March. It shows the average cumulative duration of system disruptions in hours per month by type. As a reminder, we are reporting on the 3 most common causes of unplanned disruptions. So the first is traction power, or our overhead electrical systems that power the trains, and the rail to ground system that isolates current and protects against things like power faults and corrosion. This is where we've seen the greatest improvement. Though we did have incidents in May that are not captured in this data, I will go over them in a following slide. But for April, there were nearly no traction power incidents. Second is the signal system. This provides train separation and traffic control. Here too, we've seen continuous improvement over the past several months. Third is our ongoing issues with our Series 2 vehicles, where improvements have been modest and several issues persist. Improvements consist of a mix of hardware and software updates, and we do expect to see significant improvement by the end of Q3. Next slide. I did want to take a moment. I asked my staff to please add this in, but take a moment to discuss our significant disruptions experienced by passengers in May, and to transparently say we take accountability and strive to do better. And though we've made progress, still lots of work to do. So in May, the disruptions were caused by a series of unplanned events, including OCS power loss, signal issues, and brake faults, our big 3. We do know that the vehicles involved in the brake fault disruption had not been outfitted with our new hydraulic valves. That's a hardware issue we're actively working to fix, and I can give you a status update on that. As of Monday, we have installed 62 GS screen valves with 81 remaining, and then we've installed 114 of the 133 software updates in all of our vehicles. So we are on track for finishing all those installs before Club Cup, June 15th. So we're right on it. And by the way, the last multiple Mariners, Sounders, Storm, concert events, we have not seen brake faults. So we're pretty excited. So knock on wood. I hear everybody. We're working very closely with our Metro Rail partners to integrate lessons learned from the events. We're constantly asking after every incident, what else can we do? So here is what we have done. You might see this. We're deploying more vests in the field. We're really monitoring crowd flow, which seems to be a cause of these brake faults. And we're also looking closely into the operating protocols. We have engineers that are actually physically going out and working alongside our maintainers in the traction power substations and the signal bungalows. And on top of that, we have immediately implemented a passenger experience. We have implemented that passenger experience staff go and greet our frustrated passengers and provide a listening and empathetic ear and show our appreciation for their ridership. Next slide, please. Now I'll walk you through the work we've completed since the last presentation to this committee. Next slide, please. As I've mentioned in the past month, staff have completed several improvement projects related to rail traction power and our general response to disruptions. For example, ST completed the southbound rail replacement in an area that was experiencing high levels of rail breaks that led to outages in the downtown Seattle Transit Tunnel. Work was completed in April and ahead of schedule. Traction power work has progressed, and we're now able to have a more reliable real-time status updating system, which allows for the team to respond to outages faster. Additionally, system settings are being optimized to reduce power outages while also improving worker safety by reducing voltage settings. We've also been applying lessons learned on prior projects to the recent downtown Redmond Link extension, which just opened. So this included extensive system validation prior to revenue service, which has led to a smoother passenger experience ahead of the opening in mid-May. We have and will continue to make operational and organizational changes to improve maintenance capabilities. And we've also launched the IT Operations Center, or ITOC, which was launched this last January. The ITOC has maintained a continuous 24/7, 365 coverage of the network through over 1,000 shift changes without a single lapse, showcasing the kind of reliability that we want to achieve. Metro Rail has also instituted a power resource optimization pilot program called System Expansion Power Support that reduces the level of effort needed to support the capital program and frees up staff for maintenance and repair of our existing system. Lastly, ST and Metro Rail have worked together to create new positions to improve maintenance dispatch for critical power and facilities alarms. These will be stationed in our control center. So once that team is established, the team will provide 24/7, 365 coverage to ensure operational resilience. Next slide, please. So in March, we presented the findings from the report from the ST Commission report by external consultants to advise us on how we can and should improve our operating systems to make them more reliable and more resilient. The next few slides provide a summary of how we evaluated key recommendations, aligned them with priorities, and implemented responsive actions. Next slides. ST staff have reviewed the 80 recommendations identified in the External Operations Resiliency Report. Approximately 10% of these recommendations have already been addressed. The majority of the remaining recommendations will be addressed in what we're calling the near term, but that is in the next 4 years. We are prioritizing addressing system components that have the highest likelihood of improving operations, such as really focusing in on the LRB hardware and software for the brake faults. Second, we're retiring system components that are near end of life, such as our proactive replacement of the DSTT ventilation system components. Third, the people. We're improving practices through a range of improved communication systems, training, standards, and procedures to ensure staff have the knowledge and the ability to provide forward-looking maintenance of the system and recover quickly from unplanned disruptions when they do occur. Next slide, please. Our actions can broadly be based into 2 categories. We've got smaller projects that can address immediate resiliency needs under the State of Good Repair program. And then we've also got the longer-term feasibility studies that will likely take capital investments. And I'll provide some examples of that coming forward. So next slide. Okay, the work is progressing. 22 service delivery projects have been identified that address operational resiliency report recommendations. And that full list of 22 should be provided in your packet. If it's not, let me know. We've already completed 2 projects, the ITOC, IT Operations Center, like I had mentioned, and the DSTT stray current testing. Many projects are in progress, but we have, there were many that were already in our delivery pipeline, so we were able to rapidly advance them when the resiliency report came out. But then we have an additional 7 projects that were added to that pipeline. And I'd like to highlight a few in-progress projects to demonstrate how we will improve the ability to perform proactive maintenance and react effectively. So one project, we will establish a remote monitoring system of the debris buildup in the switches to ensure teams are dispatched to clean switches and maintain consistent operability. And if we have the remote monitoring there in the switches, then that prevents our maintainers from having to do walking inspections that are very time consuming. They pull the resources away from other work going on, and they put staff at unnecessary risk. So these monitoring programs are key. Another project will establish remote monitoring in our signal houses in the uninterruptible power supplies, or UPSs. In the event of a utility power outage, this will allow us to track power supplies and respond directly with backup generators as needed. Again, all projects are expected to be completed within the next 3 to 4 years. Next slide. In addition to the smaller efforts that can be addressed in the near term, feasibility studies are also necessary to assess the cost benefit of capital investments. Some examples of these initiatives include the addition of rail crossovers and changes to the signaling system along the existing alignment to reduce headways and add more frequent service to the system as a whole. Each of these initiatives involve complex designs to be integrated into a complex existing system with associated costs and schedule impacts. Staff are actively progressing these initiatives with the anticipated completion of all feasibility studies by Q1 of 2026. And we're looking forward to bringing those findings of the feasibility studies to the board as we get them. Next slide, please. Okay, well, what is next? Well, of course, we aim to be back in front of you Q3 with another update. But before I wrap, I do want to say, and especially coming off the May board retreat, that it is always top of mind that we continuously drive down operating costs. That said, we must focus on resiliency and continuous improvement. We must commit our resources in support of our passengers. Our riders deserve a service that they can depend upon. We must deliver a reliable service every day. Next slide. And that's all I have. So any questions about the resiliency update?
Great, thank you, Marie. What questions do we have for Marie? Go ahead, Board Member Quinn.
Well, Marie, thank you for the presentation. So I've asked this question before, but I thought about asking it differently. So hopefully I've succeeded here. So how are we aligning our resiliency programs with making sure that we're using best practices? And in particular, are we learning from other transit agencies? And as someone who was in college taking MARTA all the time, they've been existing for a long time. So I'm just wondering if we've learned from other transit agencies.
It's great that you asked that question because when I took on the role on acting, we also brought on a couple of folks with a lot of experience. We had the former COO of MARTA, that is actually a Sound Transit contractor currently, reporting directly to me. So as I have my daily calls, my weekly calls, this incident report, including over weekends, he joins that call, and then we can assess, and then we debrief on these events. We also have a former COO from MBTA Boston, who actually served interim CEO for a couple of terms. So he's also, he's with WSP, but he's contracted directly to me. He also we text daily. He's on all of our incident calls. I'm keeping them very busy. So not only do we have that peer agency understanding, we have them literally on our day-to-day calls, which has provided a ton of support and understanding so that those systems have been around for a long time where we haven't. So they provide key insights. Thanks for that question.
Great, thank you, Board Member Quinn. Board Member Frizzell.
Hi, thank you for this report. It's been extremely enlightening. One of the slides showed something with the brake issues is somewhat dependent on the number of riders. Can you give us a little more context to the brake issues?
I'll do my best. So the brake issues, we're having brake faults. So essentially when we get a large crowd, so post-event is typically where we're seeing that. We usually have crushed loads, and on our new Series 2 Siemens vehicles, they're not necessarily adapting to those loads how we would like. So then they take off because we're usually like, load the trains, close the doors, go. But what we have found is we actually need to wait about 10 seconds after we close the doors for the suspension to catch up with the loads, and then we can go. So that's been a biggie. And that is included with these brake valve changes that have something to do, I think, with the filtration system and the oil going through. And then a software system update that is, again, kind of monitoring those loads. So like I said, we've also got a ton of rail supervisors, security, fare ambassadors, law enforcement out providing some crowd control, if you will. to cut off the amount of passengers so we're not overloading our trains. And that has actually been quite successful. The last few weeks, we've not seen any break faults, and I got to give a big pat on the back to our partners at Metro Rail and my team for being out there and identifying these things and then implementing the protocols once we identify them.
I can only imagine that can be difficult after a game or a concert. I've been on a few of those very crowded trains. So thank you. This has been great. I am so excited to see that we're having a lot less unplanned disruptions, and good work by you and your team. We look forward to seeing even better numbers in Q3.
Great. Thank you, Board Member Frizzell. Any other questions, comments? Sure, go ahead.
Apologies. I do have a question. Do we have data to kind of see where disruptions are most frequent along the line? Is it the downtown core, Rainier Valley, elevated segments? Do we have that? I'm just curious.
We do have data, but one of our service project supports on the list here is operations performance reporting. So we've been diving in as much as possible with our partners at the county to work through. We look at on-time performance, and then we take deep dives where we're not seeing it. Traction power does seem to be kind of like here in north for the most part. Signal has been sporadic, and the break faults are again more in the downtown core because of the higher loads. So I would say we can kind of look at that, but yeah, the traction power substations have been in the north. So we're really trying to identify that. We also have recently implemented data feeders in our traction power substations. So our engineers, instead of going out all night and pulling manually all of the information from the traction power substations, they go right to the office, and we can start digging through immediately as those happen. And that helps us identify root cause much quicker. But there's not necessarily a specific hotspots that you can really look into. There are some zones though. So we're trying to get them looked at and ready to go before we extend. And then also before the World Cup, obviously in 2026. I'm feeling good about it.
Great, thank you. Just two really quick comments from me. Just really appreciate seeing that collaboration with King County Metro. I know how important that is to make this all work, and it sounds like some great, on that slide 8, the improvements since March just seems like there's a lot of good work, and you talked about that throughout your presentation too, so thank you for that. And then really appreciated hearing the focus on the passenger experience and us deploying even more ambassadors and other folks out into the field when things like this do happen, when they are unplanned. So, and like Board Member Frizzell said, great to see the numbers headed in the right direction. Appreciate having this quarterly report at this committee. I think important, nice for us to hear, and importantly for the public to hear how much progress is being made and how seriously we're taking this. So thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we're going to move on to our second presentation, which is the 2025 Club World Cup and the 2026 World Cup update. And we have Juan Higuera, our Executive Strategic Advisor, to provide the report. Welcome, Juan.
Thank you, Chair Walker, members of the committee. I'm Juan Higuera. I'm the agency's World Cup planning lead and excited to share with you the second update on preparations for the FIFA tournaments coming to Seattle in the next 2 summers. Next slide, please. Today, we'll share the final plans for the FIFA Club World Cup coming in 10 days. And we'll also share some fares and service elements for next year's tournament. There is no formal action by the committee. This is for informational purposes only. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you actually see the 2 tournaments compared side by side. And the main thing that I wanted to flag here from our last presentation where we shared this information is as we coordinated further with FIFA and Lumen Field, we've started to get a better sense of how ticket sales have been going for each of the 6 games. Originally, we were thinking we were going to host 6 Seahawks playoff games over a span of 10 days or higher type of ridership. We are now hearing that it's going to range between a typical Sounders game or a typical Seahawks games. But we are treating this tournament as a test of our activities and strategies that we plan on a bigger scale for 2026. Next slide, please. I'll now focus on the 2025 preparation. So next slide. So on this slide, you actually see the schedule for this year's tournament of the games here in Seattle. We are hosting a game every other day starting on June 15th. We do have Mariners games on June 15th and on the 17th, and we'll monitor ridership and adjust our strategies if needed, depending on how things are going. Next slide, please. So diving into our service plans for each of our modes for Club World Cup, these mostly mirror what we typically do for a Seahawks game when those games are being played here at Lumen Field. But I'll focus my remarks here on the things that are different from a typical Seahawks game. For the one line, the June 15th game and the June 23rd game, we will actually have schedule changes to accommodate for larger crowds. So on the 15th, post-game, our frequencies decrease pretty significantly after 9 o'clock, and the game actually ends at 9. So we are extending our 8-minute frequencies for 2 hours post-game to make sure riders are able to get home. And then on the 23rd, which is a noon game for Sounders that day, we are introducing 8-minute headways all day. And this will actually be a test of a potential scenario you'll see on the alignment in 2026. So we want to make sure we work out kinks this year ahead of 2026. For Sounder, we will have special event service on the June 21st game, which is a Saturday game. There will be no special event service on June 15th because we are serving Mariners games earlier in the day. All of the weekday matches, we will have special event trains for the first time. We're excited for that pilot. And then we will also have some schedule tweaks on both the North and the South line. There's a lot to go into there, but please refer to the schedule if you're attending one of the games and using Sounder. Next slide, please. Similarly, the staffing plans for ambassadors, facilities, and security, these tend to mirror what we typically do for our Seahawks games. So these should be familiar if you've been out on the system during those games. For ambassadors, we will have staff ambassadors pre-game throughout the one-line system. We will have contracted ambassadors supporting our ADA passengers primarily here at the International District Station with all the work going on at the station with multiple elevators and escalator bodies of work ongoing. We want to make sure that folks are ADA folks are able to be using the available facilities there. And then for fare ambassadors, they're going to be supporting post-game. For facilities, we will have King County facilities, Sound Transit facility staff at different points throughout the downtown core to make sure that should anything go wrong during the tournament, they're at the ready to respond. And then for security, similarly, we will have upstaffing in the downtown core, and we will have additional mobile patrols between Soto and Westlake to make sure that we are visible with larger crowds. Next slide, please. Something that is different this year, and I talked a little bit about this in my last presentation, we're actually going to have activation activities here outside Union Station. We have now partnered with the Chinatown International Business Improvement District, the CIDBIA, and the Alliance for Pioneer Square to activate not only Union Station or outside of Union Station, but also down in Pioneer Square. So folks will be able to interact with different levels of activities at each of those locations. So there's going to be photo booths, DJs, music, digital passport. So if you are down here, please interact with the community. We are excited for this pilot and potentially taking it to a bigger scale in 2026. Next slide, please. In addition, you may start to see, and you probably already have seen, some of the additional wayfinding and signage that is going up at some of our stations. Here at DID, along Wells Street Bridge and the King Street Station, Westlake and SeaTac Airport. We are improving access for folks to be able to move to different destinations throughout our system as well as to test different strategies ahead of 2026, which will be at a much bigger scale and will require more regional coordination. Next slide, please. I will now turn to focus on the FIFA World Cup preparations for next year. So next slide. Last time I was here, I talked about the importance of highlighting the structure for how we are approaching regional coordination for 2026. As you can imagine, hosting the scale of the 2026 World Cup requires a lot more coordination regionally than maybe typically for a major event here in the downtown. Key to all of that is the role of the local organizing committee, who we've been partnering with over the last year or so. And they are hosting us, the regional transportation providers, on monthly and sometimes more frequent calls to coordinate our different plans. So you will hear us talk more about the LOC's role throughout this effort. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you actually see the match schedule. So all of the 2026 games are during weekdays, and you see them highlighted in purple there. Two things I want to note is one of the games is on June 19th, Juneteenth, and the other game that is of importance to us is on the 26th, which is before Pride weekend. And we are actually in conversations with the local organizing committee about different strategies we can implement during those games, in particular to show up in our best light during the tournament. Next slide, please. When I was last here, there were some questions from board members about what is going to be our regional affairs approach. And so we wanted to take the opportunity to really talk about what is in place today, what are we working towards, and what are the things that we have in review. So right now, you're all familiar with the Orca system and that being available on Google Wallet as well. We have TV and paper tickets that our passengers purchase at our stations. And we also have the Transit Go app, mainly on King County and Sound Transit services. In addition, right now, the Orca Joint Board is working on open payment. Open payment will facilitate passengers paying with a credit card or on their phone with if they're NFC enabled. It just means that it has a little 3 bars where you can tap on the Orca reader. That'll actually improve access to our system and remove barriers, and people can just scan and go. In addition to that, we are in review of different elements that impact fair payment for 2026. The development of a multi-day pass, so folks can go to our ticket vending machines and purchase one time and don't worry about it for the rest of the time they're here. We're also looking at what our game day regional affairs approach. There's been some conversations there. And we're also looking at sponsorship opportunities, including sponsorship of fairs. So more conversations to be had on those fronts. And as we learn more, we will bring more updates to the board. Next slide, please. Moving to our service plans for 2026. And there's a lot going on the slide, so I'll walk through this a little bit slowly. But as I go through each of the modes, one thing you'll start to hear is because all of the games in 2026 are going to be on weekdays, all of our partners have told us they were going to be at max capacity, and we need to come up with creative strategies to be able to deploy more service. But that additional service will likely not be during the peak. It will likely be during middays and weekends. And so you'll see that as I go through each of these line items for each of the modes. So for Link, we do expect that we will have the 1 and 2 line fully extended across the lake and down to Federal Way. And as we talked earlier in the meeting, 4-minute headways north of downtown during the peak. So we are exploring for Link midday and evening service ads and potentially weekend, depending on what the final schedule looks like and other activities that are going on in relation to FIFA here in the downtown. For Tacoma Link, we are looking at additional evening and weekend service as well. But as additional details of the Tacoma Fan Zone are released, we expect that to be this fall. We will be looking at what other scenarios to move the riders to and from those festivities. For ST Express, the plan is to not make any major changes to ST Express until after the World Cup to make sure that we have enough capacity in the system to move the folks that we expect in 2026. As the schedule is released, we will be looking at additional midday and evening service scenarios, and again, potentially weekend if warranted. For Sounder, we have had some high-level conversations with BNSF about additional round trips during the tournament. And as those conversations progress, we'll update the board. We will be leveraging the 2025 schedule pilot that I mentioned earlier and re-engage with BNSF as well as Amtrak about opportunities for additional service in 2026. Next slide, please. I covered our typical modes, and on this slide, I want to talk about two additional strategies that we have identified in order to provide maximum flexibility to the operating system during this high demand period. First, I'll talk about charters. So we have been working on developing an RFP to procure additional charter support and leverage that for either additional system capacity, so creating special routes to move fans to and from different points, and or be on standby for any disruptions that we may have along either Link or Sounder to move people quickly. Obviously, any deployment of this charter support would be in close coordination with our operating partners to make sure that we're not duplicating strategies and or service that our partners may be providing. In addition, on the right-hand side of the screen, you see bus refurbishment. So we have some buses that have been in storage, ready to be decommissioned over the last year. And so we have now come up with a strategy to actually refurbish them and potentially leverage them during the World Cup, again, for additional system capacity and or for standby for disruptions. These buses could actually be leveraged post-World Cup by the Stride operations team, should there be any need in that system. Next slide, please. So for next steps, over the next few months, and in particular over the next 2-3 weeks, we will be deploying our plans for the Club World Cup and facilitating a lessons learned process later in the summer to make sure that we account for any things that we need to work on over the fall ahead of 2026. And we will continue to coordinate with our local organizing committee partners as well as our regional partners on our final plans for 2026. And we'll provide our next update in Q3 to this committee. So that concludes my presentation, Madam Chair. I'll happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you so much. What questions do we have from the committee? All right, I am curious. On slide 13, you have a number of fare overview things that are in development. Once we set up something like the open payment system, is that something that will be available beyond the World Cup, or is it something that's implemented for a short period of time?
No, it is going to be available post-World Cup. The timeline for that is early next year, being ready, and that'll be in place in perpetuity.
And would someone be able to transfer to a different system if they're using that open payment system, or is that the benefit you get from Orca is to have that transfer?
I actually do not know the full answer to that question. We can take that back and get back to you.
Okay, great. Well, looking forward to hearing more and appreciate how quickly we're going to have these 2025 games upon us right next weekend. So thank you, and looking forward to hearing how it goes. I think so many of these things will be benefits to the region far beyond these events. So I'm glad we're able to implement those. All right, last call for any questions from the committee. All right, thank you. Now to our final presentation, that is our passenger impact program that we get every month. And Kevin Mizuta is here to give that presentation today, our Link Right-of-Way Access Deputy Director. Go ahead, Kevin.
Good afternoon, Chair Walker and committee members. My name is Kevin Mizuta, and I'm here today to report on the Passenger Impact Program to the committee. Next slide, please. The intent of this program is to ensure that service for our riders remains a priority. We balance the need for construction with service to passengers by working closely with our partners in operations and passenger experience to minimize the impact of planned disruptions for our riders. This includes packaging as much work as possible into shared service disruptions and scheduling them at times when they'll have fewer impacts. We also fit emerging work such as resiliency improvements into the calendar. Today's report will provide an update on work that wrapped up in May, as well as service disruptions related to the Federal Way and Eastlink tie-in work to the existing light rail system. Next slide, please. This graphic presented on this slide shows the work that the Passenger Impact Program has coordinated so far this year. Looking at May, you can see we wrapped up service disruptions related to stairwell construction at the new Pinehurst Station. The team may need additional short-term evening service disruptions in the future, but they are expected to be much more shorter in duration compared to the roofing and stairwell work that took place in the few months of this year. While it's not shown in the graphic, annual rail grinding has also been going on during May. Next slide, please. The completion of planned work in the Mount Baker area was challenged by intermittent equipment failures. For this reason, the team is expected to return to grinding in late July. This will require additional late night single tracking along with extended headways from 11 p.m. to close the service. For now, the rail grinding team has moved to areas under construction on the Eastlink and Federal Way alignments. On dates when work on the operational alignment starts at 11 p.m., headways can reach up to 20 minutes. The teams need considerable flexibility to effectively perform their work, so exact impact dates are typically shared just a few days before they occur. Communication teams will use temporary signage and messaging to alert passengers of the late night impacts. Next slide, please. After the last RIO report in May, the Federal Way project requested early night closures at the Angle Lake Station to accelerate signal testing beyond what they could do during non-revenue hours. This required the early closure of Angle Lake Station at 10 p.m. on weekdays for 4 weeks, from May 19th to June 12th. This work will be completed as the Club World Cup service impact moratorium goes into effect in mid-June. Next slide, please. Turning to the next service impact in downtown Seattle, the Eastlink project will complete their systems integration testing this weekend for the tie-in to the 2 line to the downtown tunnel. The work was deferred from January of this year. Only 1 day is needed for this work. The service disruption will begin on Saturday, June 7th at 10 p.m. and end at the start of service on Monday morning, June 9th. This testing work will require full closure of the downtown tunnel with a bus bridge between Capitol Hill and Soto stations. As usual, during downtown tunnel closures, we will have a full complement of passenger care, including temporary signing, staff ambassadors, and social media to help everyone prepare and complete trips. An additional service impact was added this weekend to accommodate a last-minute emergency request to replace a stairway rail in the International District Station. This will require the closure of the northbound platform at the International District Station all day on Saturday, June 7th, until the Eastlink complete tunnel closure at 10 p.m. Riders who need to exit at International District will be instructed to continue to Pioneer Square Station and transfer onto a return train. Next slide, please. WashDOT will conduct a bridge inspection on the morning of Saturday, June 28th. This will close the downtown transit tunnel from Soto to Westlake with a bus bridge serving passengers. The outage will last from the start of service until approximately 10 a.m. that morning. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you so much. Do committee members have questions? All right. Well, as always, good to hear what is happening and make sure that that's public so that people know what to expect. Thanks for being here, Kevin. All right. We don't have an executive session today. Is there any other business to come before the committee? All right, seeing none, our next Rider Experience and Operations Committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, July 3rd at 1 p.m. The meeting will take place in the Ruth Fisher Boardroom and virtually via Zoom. The link to join the meeting virtually will be provided on the Sound Transit website as well as the meeting agenda. With that, we are adjourned.